Mom, please, help me.
My daughter, who had just gotten married 3 months ago, suddenly came to me in the middle of the night.
What happened?
When I looked at her, her face was swollen and covered in bruises. I was at a loss for words at the sight of my transformed daughter. Then, hearing her story, I trembled with anger. Unforgivable. Was it a lie that he would make my daughter happy? And I swore revenge on those who had done this to my precious daughter. I am Genesis, 50 years old. I divorced when my only daughter, Madeline, was still young, and I raised her on my own while working full-time. Madeline is not the outgoing type, but she is strong-willed and hard-working. Through steady effort, she managed to get a job at the company she had always admired. Her presence encouraged me, and I kept moving forward even during tough times. So, when she told me,
"There's someone I want you to meet,"
my heart was filled with joy. She introduced me to Liam, a man 7 years older than her who worked at a client company. He looked handsome in his suit and greeted me cheerfully, appearing serious and sincere.
I came here today to ask for your permission to marry Madeline.
However, after a brief introduction, he suddenly said this. Madeline was only 23 years old, and I learned that she had only been dating Liam for about 6 months. I was expecting to be introduced to her boyfriend, so I was honestly taken aback. Well, you both are still young, so maybe it's too early to think about the future? I gently admonished them, but he straightened his posture and looked me straight in the eye.
I can't think of anyone else but Madeline. I believe I will never meet another woman as wonderful as her.
With a serious expression, he passionately conveyed how much he cared for Madeline.
Liam, I feel the same way. Mom, please, allow us to get married.
If you both are so determined, then I will support you. I was moved by his passionate feelings, and with Madeline's words, I approved of their union.
Genesis, thank you. I will definitely make Madeline happy.
Seeing Madeline and him looking at each other happily, I couldn't help but smile. Yet, after Liam left, I couldn't fully rejoice in their marriage, and a feeling of unease arose. Is this really okay? Isn't it too soon for them to get married? But I heard that every parent has mixed feelings when their child gets married, and honestly, I thought Madeline's marriage was still far in the future. Surely, it's just that I wasn't mentally prepared. They looked so happy, so it must be fine. After that, the meeting with Liam's parents went smoothly, and the discussions about the wedding progressed well. Both Liam and Madeline are only children. Liam's parents, James and Caroline, who had always wanted a daughter, seemed to be very fond of Madeline. Madeline said,
Mom, I think I'll live with Liam's parents after we get married.
While it was nice to be loved, it was actually Liam's parents who suggested living together. Are you sure? I've heard that living with in-laws can be tough. Madeline replied,
James and Caroline are very kind, and with Liam around, I have nothing to worry about.
Well, if it's you, Madeline, I'm sure you'll manage. Madeline had always been straightforward and loved by her elders, so I believed she would do well. Besides, Liam's parents' house was only a 20-minute drive from mine, so I felt reassured knowing I could quickly get there if needed. The wedding went off without a hitch, and Madeline's new life at her in-laws' house began. I thought she would be enthusiastic and doing well, but about a month after she got married, things started to change. The daily messages from Madeline stopped coming, and even when I sent her messages, she rarely replied. I didn't want to interfere too much with Madeline's married life, but I was worried, so I decided to call her. Liam answered the phone.
Oh, Genesis, what's up?
Can I speak to Madeline?
She's in the bath right now. She's doing well, so don't worry.
His tone was gentle but firm, and I ended the call without hearing Madeline's voice. After that, I didn't receive any messages or calls from Madeline. I'll just go see her. Caroline had told me to visit any time, so I decided to visit Madeline's in-laws' house that weekend. Caroline answered the intercom and said, somewhat curtly, that Madeline and Liam were out. I'm sorry for coming unannounced. When will they be back? She sighed deeply and said,
You should have called ahead. I don't know when they'll be back.
I thought she was right, so I had no choice but to leave. I wondered if I was worrying too much, but I couldn't shake the bad feeling, especially since Liam and Caroline's attitudes seemed different compared to before the wedding. After much deliberation, I decided to call Madeline's workplace just to hear her cheerful voice. To my shock, they told me she had already resigned and that her sudden departure had caused problems. Madeline quit her job? That can't be true. When she received the job offer from her dream company, we both cried tears of joy. Madeline had been so enthusiastic about balancing work and household chores like I did, so I couldn't believe she would quit suddenly. Something is definitely wrong. But what should I do? I wasn't sure if visiting her in-laws again would allow me to see Madeline, and I was even considering consulting the police when the incident happened. 2 days after learning about Madeline's resignation, it was late at night. Suddenly, the doorbell rang. Who could it be at 2 a.m.? Feeling suspicious, I cautiously peeked at the intercom screen. It was too dark to see clearly, but the figure looked like Madeline. I rushed to the door and hurriedly opened it. What happened at this hour? I've been worried since I couldn't reach you. Madeline said,
Mom, I'm sorry.
I was relieved to see her, but the next moment, I was speechless. Madeline's face was swollen beyond recognition, and her body was covered in bruises. What happened to you? How did you end up like this? Madeline, trembling and crying, started to speak haltingly after a while.
Well, you see.
She began to tell her story in a choked voice. After the wedding, Liam's attitude changed drastically. He said,
Since you came as a bride, you should serve us.
And treated her like a slave. Liam and his parents were responsible for her current state. I had suspected as much when she fled to my house, but hearing the details made me tremble with anger. Madeline said,
I didn't want to trouble you, Mom. I'm sorry.
Seeing her sobbing, I felt a surge of desire for revenge against them. I want to make them suffer in hell. I vowed never to forgive Liam and his parents, who had promised to make Madeline happy but ended up hurting her so much. First, I let Madeline rest and waited for dawn to confront her in-laws. The next morning, I took her to the hospital for treatment. After that, we drove to their house. As expected, her in-laws were in an uproar when they realized Madeline was missing. James shouted.
So you took her away?
Realizing it was me at the door, James yelled angrily. Can you explain why Madeline is in this condition? I questioned him firmly, undeterred by his reaction. Next to me was Madeline, her face still swollen and her wounds covered with gauze. Seeing her, they let us in, perhaps worried about the neighbors. The three of them showed a moment of hesitation but soon revealed their true colors. Caroline glared at Madeline and said,
I just disciplined her a bit because she wasn't working properly.
laughing scornfully. What are you saying? And Liam, didn't you promise to make her happy? Liam replied,
Well, that's only if she fulfills her duties as a wife. But she was too focused on her job, so I submitted her resignation for her.
Madeline hadn't quit her job voluntarily. Liam had submitted the resignation without her consent. By the time she realized it, it was too late, she tearfully explained. It was because he didn't like that she was coming home later than him due to her busy work schedule. Madeline was so happy to work at her dream company and was doing her best. Liam retorted,
That's not my problem. If she can't balance both, she has to quit, right?
Liam acted as if he was completely blameless. James added,
My son is right. The other day, it took her an hour to make dinner. She can't do anything properly.
James joined in, and Madeline muttered,
That's terrible.
while trembling. Then why don't you help her, Caroline? But Caroline, crossing her arms, said in a strong tone,
When I became a bride, I was made to do everything and told to learn by doing.
James chimed in,
That's right. It's a generational change. But I was watching over her properly.
They looked at each other and nodded in agreement, acting as if they had done nothing wrong. In reality, Caroline had pushed all the housework onto Madeline and did whatever she pleased. James, who had already retired and was at home, constantly monitored Madeline and interfered with everything she did. They even took her phone to prevent her from telling me about it and made sure she couldn't leave the house when I visited. And that wasn't all. Madeline believed that Liam would change and help her someday. Despite enduring the harsh treatment, the abuse from her in-laws only escalated. They made her eat leftovers and bathe in cold water, saying it was a waste of electricity. When Madeline couldn't take it anymore and complained that it was wrong, it led to the visible injuries on her body. Liam slapped her hard, calling her insolent. Caroline suggested re-educating her, and they took turns beating her with a mop. Finally, when she was released, Madeline felt her life was in danger. She waited until the three of them were asleep, then fled the house. She walked for over an hour and came to my house, barely escaping with her life. Before the marriage, you treated Madeline with care. Why have you changed so much? I can't understand, I demanded forcefully. The three of them exchanged glances and smirked. Liam said,
From the beginning, I just wanted a wife who would obey me. I thought Madeline would make a good servant.
Liam said this nonchalantly, and Caroline sighed.
She was really a disappointment.
James added,
Well, maybe she's learned her lesson from this. We could give her another chance, couldn't we?
At James' outrageous suggestion, they all burst into laughter. Madeline said,
Enough! I can't forgive you anymore.
Before I could respond, Madeline glared at the three of them and spoke out, her body trembling with anger. Liam, enraged, said,
How dare you speak to us like that?
and tried to grab Madeline. I quickly restrained him, pinning him to the floor so he couldn't move. Liam struggled, and his parents were stunned by my swift action.
I never mentioned it, but I was almost an Olympic wrestler in my youth. I had to give it up due to an injury,
I said, tightening my grip on Liam. Liam cried out.
Ow! Ow! Let me go!
He flailed his arms and legs, tears in his eyes. When I loosened my grip, he collapsed weakly to the floor.
Pathetic. Now, who's next?
I cracked my knuckles and slowly approached James and Caroline. James pleaded.
We're sorry. Please stop.
They clutched their heads and began to tremble.
I sent Madeline off wishing for her happiness, and you did this to her. I will never forgive you.
I shouted, and the three of them shrank back in fear. Madeline said,
Liam, I want a divorce.
Following my lead, Madeline presented the divorce papers to Liam. Liam, his face red with anger, said,
What are you talking about? I will never agree to a divorce.
This morning, I took Madeline to the hospital and got a medical certificate for her injuries. We also filed a police report. We have nothing to hide, and we will fight this to the end,
I said, looking at each of them slowly. Now, they were sweating profusely, panicking, and shouting, Stop, please, and what about our reputation? Madeline said,
I want a divorce as soon as possible.
Seeing them in such a state, Madeline spoke with disdain.
I look forward to seeing what happens next. You should regret what you've done.
We gathered Madeline's belongings and headed for the door. Liam's pitiful voice called out.
Wait, please.
But without looking back, Madeline and I left the house confidently. After that, the divorce was finalized, and we claimed $20,000 in alimony. The police accepted our report, and the three of them were questioned. Although they were released soon after, the police visit to their house became a topic of gossip in the neighborhood, and they were shunned. As for Liam, when Madeline reported his abuse to her former colleagues, the news reached his company, and he was removed from the fast track to promotion. Meanwhile, Madeline took her time to heal both physically and emotionally at home and then started looking for a new job. As for me, my life is just beginning. I have started training to become a wrestling coach.
How did you like this story? Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.